Hello and welcome to my video on age rating and legal issues in games and movies. Let's begin. First of all, I'll start with the age rating in movies. The ones you used to see in England is ran by the BBFC. They've run the age ratings in England and the United Kingdom, like Ireland, Wales, Scotland, all that stuff. They do video games and movies, but I'll be generally talking about them in the movie sense, give you a brief overview of what the age ratings would be, because I'm also doing PEGI for games. So let's begin. Let's begin with UC. So UC is the lowest you can get in the age rating department. This deals with children preschool, so anyone in preschool can play these kind of games or watch this kind of film or TV series. So 1 upwards basically. Next up is U, stands for universally. This is for the age ratings 4 and upwards. You're not going to see any violence in here, just as UC you wouldn't see any violence. This age rating is it's going to be mostly used for TV programs like Dora the Explorer or Teletubbies. But other than that, you don't really see that many movies using the U rating. If it's a kid movie, it's usually a PG, because that brings me on to the next category, which is PG. PG is the step up from U. This is meant for children 8 and older. So yeah. This film, these type of films, you can have subtle adult humor. You know, the kind of adult humor that is very subtle and only adults will get. And you're not going to see much violence. You might see some violence in some PG movies, but not very often you see it. Movies that use PG are usually Disney films like Frozen and Snow White. You also see films like Shrek using this category as well. It usually comes under this category. So this is more the category that most child films come under. Next category will be the 12s, which is 12 and 12A. So I'll give you the 12 first. 12, you'll have more violence in 12 movies. This is the type of movie you see companies like Marvel using with Avengers and Hulk. This is more the teen appropriate movies, as the category says, it's for 12s and upwards. Then you come to 12A, which is basically 12, but your parents or guardians can take you into the cinema with you. You don't really see 12As in games that much. I don't think I've ever seen a 12A game, because it's mostly used for movies. You do see 12s in video games, but they're not 12As. Next category I'll be coming to is the 15. So at the 12th end, you do get to see some sexualization of the human race and maybe dogs if some weird stuff happens. So at 15s, you can see nudity, but only in the upper department when it comes down to it. You're gonna see gore at this category as well. themes of horror. So it might play on arachnophobia, fear of spiders. Usually horror movies use this because it gives them a good range of audience, but they can still not be too subtle with the violence and blood, because you used to see horror movies have some blood in it, like Paranormal, I believe, had some blood in it. But other than that, Paranormal, is it Paranormal? I think it's Paranormal. Yeah, I think that's what the movie's called. That is a 15 movie. You do see TV series and quite a lot of games coming under this as well, like The Last of Us and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You also see comedies in this category most often, like the adult comedies. You do see comedies in the 12 ratings, but it's usually directed towards the younger generation than the older one. So comedies usually come under the 15 rating because they use a harsh language, which is more acceptable in a 15 rating than a 12 rating. You can see it in the 12 rating, but not very often. Not very often. You might get a few swear words, but not that many. But in the 15, you're allowed to use swearing more freely than a normal 12 movie. Next category we'll come to in the BBFC is the 18. First 18, because there's two 18s. First 18s. This one is used for much more gorier projects, like Mad Max uses it because it uses quite a lot of full frontal nudity, which can be used in an 18. You don't see it that often in an 18, to be honest, these days, but you sometimes can. It is acceptable in the 18. Also, you're going to see more gore, violence. You're going to see guns. You could see guns in all the other ones. 12, you sometimes see guns in 12. 15, you're allowed to use guns as well, but this one's going to be the much more gorier and sexualized out of all of them. For my opinion, you usually see sexualization of characters in the 12s and 18s. You don't really see it in the 15s because it's more used for comedies and horror, as I said so before. But other than that, yeah. What else would you see in 18? Basically, it's just more of what you've seen before, but in more larger quantity and all the other categories. Next 18 movies I'll come to is 18R, which is basically the porn category. Yep, this is the category what most adult studios use. So you get quite a lot of prawns in this one. Also with 18, not 18R, you do see quite a lot of games like Fallout, like Goya games. You should see the gameplay of Fallout on the screen at the moment. That's the game I'm playing at the moment. So yeah, just so you know what's happening on the screen there. Okay, so we'll get out of the BBCF rating, FC rating, and go on to Peggy. So with Peggy, you get Peggy's kind of the same as BBFC, but a little bit different when it comes down to its category. So the first category you come to is Peggy 3, which is basically the same as the PG rating. This is the lowest you can get in the Peggy ratings. You see games like educational games at this rating, like some younger kid games from young TVs like Dora the Explorer, Teletubbies, or maths games. Everybody loves maths games. Next category we'll come into with Peggy is Peggy 7. Peggy 7 is basically little bit like PG as well, but you can see like a little bit like you can have violence in this category, but not between any humanoids or animal look-alike things. You're gonna mostly see racing games in this category because there's no harm to human-looking things or animal-looking things, just cars. So you mostly see like car games like Mario Kart or Gran Turismo in this category. Next category we'll come to is the PEGI 12s. It's basically like the 12 rating of the BBFC, but yeah. This one's mostly used for like games like Zelda uses this quite a bit. What other games uses this? I think Mario comes under this category as well. The PEGI 12s. You do see a lot of kids games, but it's violence between. You can do violence between humans and animal-looking things in this category. You don't see any gore at this category either, or nudity, but you can see sexualization at this form of PEGI. Next PEGI I'll talk about is PEGI 16. This one is basically like your your 15 in the BBFC. It's pretty much exactly the same. You can have sexual activities, violence. You can see blood at this junction categories. You can also see drugs like tobacco being used by characters. So you would see that in a PEGI 16 game. Other than that, it's just like the 15, but you can use, but the characters can use cigarettes and drink. I think you can use alcohol in a PEGI 15 as well, but you don't really see it that much in PEGI 15 games. Next PEGI I'll talk about is PEGI 18, which is kind of like the BBFC rating of 18, which this one covers gross violence, sexual activity, so you can see little bit of breasts, I'll say. You might see a penis, but you could see nudity at this stage. This mostly deals with gory games, though, like Fallout and all that. Also PEGI has these subcategories, as you might see in the picture before, which says if the game has bad language or might have a phobia in it. You've probably seen the categories like at the start when I was talking about PEGI. So you got your fears like arachnophobia and all that. You also got what else have you got in this category? You also got your bad language. It also tells you if it has violence, if it has sex, which does also include nudity. So it would tell you if there's nudity in the game before you buy it. So as long with the 18 movie, you might see the two sex symbols. Also tells you if the game's online or if it has drug abuse or gambling. I like these categories because it gives you a little bit more information about the game, which some games what the BBFC rating doesn't. It just gives you a appropriate age rating what you're supposed to play it as. But I like these subcategories personally. It gives you a little bit more information on it. Okay. Next thing I like to talk about is the legal and ethical issues with movies and games. So this will be dealing with sexual content, copyright, you know, what people think would be right and wrong in games. I'll start with the legal issues. So starting off with copyright. So copyright just helps protect a person's project or ownership over a game or movie or music or any piece of medium or piece of art. So this just basically protects your idea or creation from being taken by others, or like resources you use. A famous example of this is I think it was a game called it was like Shao Code or something. It stole assets from Bethesda's game Oblivion and reused them in their level. It basically took the entire level from Oblivion and just copied over to their game, which I do not approve of personally. I don't really like people who would do that, but you know, so basically, you know, just protects your ownership. This is under the where is it? The Copyright Act of 1960. As I said before, it's to protect your intellectual property. Okay. Next thing is licensing agreements, or people might know it as the user and conditions that you usually see pop up before you skip them, because that's what everybody seems to do. So this is just a agreement and relationship between the consumer and company, saying which is what's good and not to do with their property. So like things like MMOs, they don't really like players modding their games, because it could be considered a form of cheating, like giving people god weapons. But like single player games don't really you can usually mod single player games. Like, it's usually fine with them, because like it's not hurting the multiplayer community in any way. You do see some multiplayers using mods, which I do like. It does help build a community within a game, and it makes it last long, even if it's sometimes frustrating when somebody gets like a god mode weapon. But hey, what can you do? It's also used to say if there might be something in there, like an agreement, something like you can't copy the games or media file and then pirate it. That'll be used in the user agreement. You can't copy our stuff, that kind of thing. Another legal issue would probably be trade secrets. So that applies to someone in the project who's working on the project, like 3D modelers or concept artists, not talk about the game before the game's release. So basically, all this really is that it's just a agreement between the company and their hirees or employees, to not spread rumors, gossip, information about the game, which might inhibit its sales, or might give away too much about the game which they're working on. You see this quite a bit in media companies. Yeah. Another one of these would be trade market, which basically is just after the game's release. You're not usually in a company, you're not allowed to say how many sales the game did. Game companies don't really like that information getting out, because A, it makes the game look like it's doing too well, so people don't want to buy it. You do get a few things like that. Or B, it looks like the game's selling poorly, even though you're saying it's not, and people are not going to buy it because they know it's not going to last long. Alright, moving on, we'll talk about ethical issues. So this is going to be like sexualization of characters in games, or religious issues which you might see in games, or gore. Yeah. So sexualization of characters. You see this quite a bit in games. Both male and females are usually sexualized. Males, usually very bulky, very muscly, abs. If you punch them, they'll punch back. That kind of thing. Females usually a scampy. Well, not usually. So it's mostly like larger breasts and hips you usually see in sexualization of females. You also see like very revealing clothing. This can be on both characters. Most recognizably, most people see sexualization in females, but it does happen to male characters as well. It's not that revealing with the male characters. Usually, it's more body types. Like every male character I see is like really muscly and has good shoulders and that nice chin. That usually see. With females, usually as I said before, large breasts, hips. Sometimes larger eyes, depending on which game it is, what genre it is, like what country made it. Obviously you got the classic scampy uniform, which you see in some games. You mostly see this in fighting games because, as I said before, sex sells, and fighting games you see a lot of this because they need to sell the game, and the genre's not quite as prime as it used to be, so they usually have like a few characters. Plus, most fighting games which have a sexualization of females are from an older generation, like Street Fighter was made back in it was in the 80s. Other games you might see sexualization is games from other countries like Asia. You see a few sexualization of female characters in Asia. You see it in male characters, but from Asia like me, it's usually Western games with sexualized males. Sometimes, like Nathan Drake, that's quite a sexualized male character. Tight shirts, wears skinny jeans to show those leg muscles. They're quite skinny, quite a handsome face as well. I'll move on to religious issues. This sometimes happens, like with games and movies. Sometimes you might go too far with religious response, making a movie about the Nazis. Sometimes goes poorly because obviously, as history told us, Nazis not very nice when it comes down to religious beliefs, as it turns out. So you get some backlash when you put that faction into a movie, because most people don't like the idea of concentration camps and people dying in them. Also, games like Final Fantasy, they do sometimes have problems with religion, because most of the time you're defeating God, like some form of God. Also, another legal and ethical issue is which games don't rarely do. You never. I don't think I've ever seen a game do it before without a mod. Killing of children. You never see that in games. That's quite frowned upon. I don't even think you'll get a PEGI or BBFC rating if there's any kind of child killing or murdering in a game. Usually that's banned. You don't really see child deaths. It's very rarely you do. like extremely rare. I know of 2 games which has like slight, like even the idea of a dead child in them. So yeah, you're not allowed to do any kind of things to children in games. Another ethical issue, racism in games. You don't really see it that much anymore. It really happens in the older games. I'm sure if we look back at games in another like 10 or 20 years back on our generation of games, we'll probably see racism which wouldn't be acceptable in then, or even worse if we all become racist in the future. I hope doesn't happen. One scenario to think about. Also, video recordings in games, that's another legal issue. This is it's quite a confusing topic because you do get quite a lot of let's players which game companies like seeing because it promotes their games, but also at the same time it might contribute to players not buying the game because they've already seen someone else play the game. So yeah, but most people who would see the game, I think, would buy the game. I've bought a few games because I saw a Let's Player play it before, so yeah. Another one you might have is the Licensing Act of 2003. This basically is just you have to license a name. It's basically an updated version of a different licensing act. Basically, this means license the game name, like game items name, so people. This is just so people don't license it before you and sue you for using like the name you put in a game for an item, like calling Bethesda owns the name Nuka-Cola. So if another company uses the name Nuka-Cola on something else, like another drink in a game, or like a real drink, that Bethesda will sue them because that infringes on the Licensing Act. You also have your privacy law, which I spoke a little bit about. That basically just that protects the user or person's privacy. It comes usually along with the Copyright Act, and that's all I got to talk about. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.